and then he went, Kenya, and thenพี่เอาพาไปไว้ที่กรุงเทพ
In late 2017, some conversations led us to decide to focus on the problem of concentrated child poverty in the Pittsburgh area. We looked at some census data and found that we have areas in our region in which more than half of the kids are living in poverty. So we spent so far a year and a half looking at what causes those concentrations of poverty, what the effects are on communities, families, and of course the kids themselves, and what, if anything, can be done about it. We were kind of lucky that early on we became aware of a visit by some Scottish health officials to Pittsburgh. We were able to sit in on their conversations with Pittsburgh officials in which the Scottish health folks posed a question, why doesn't Pittsburgh have a plan for dealing with child poverty? And we then asked them, well, do you have a plan for dealing with child poverty? Turns out they did. In fact, they have a law in Scotland that was passed in late 2017 that requires the National Health Service, the national government, the local governments to work together to virtually eliminate child poverty by the year 2030. We decided we should go see what that looks like on the ground. What happens when a community, and in fact a nation, decides to work together to take on child poverty.
I lived in Scotland briefly after college and jumped at this opportunity to work with the Post-Gazette and the Pulitzer Center for a number of reasons. The most critical being that I work in children's literature and I see the trend to address some of the obstacles and challenges that children face in pretty hard-hitting children's books, picture books for kids. And this whole childhood poverty series really addresses some of the realities of what kids experience when they're living in poverty. And Scotland was a great surprise to me, mostly in the way that there didn't seem to be a sense of shame about it. They accepted the reality of it, but they also had a real kind of roll up your sleeves, how are we going to address these issues? And there was a real sense of kinship that kind of ran through these communities that we visited.
I think one of the great things about this project that we were able to do is that we were able to look at child poverty from 3 different lenses per se, through the words of Rich Lord, through my visuals and photography, and Stephanie Strasberg's images, but also Stacy Innerst's mind as well. And combining all those elements into one package is something that I've never seen in journalism before. I'm a journalism nerd. I read a lot. I read different articles from different publications, but I've never seen words, illustrations, and images put together in a way where you essentially get three views into the same subject. And I think what that did is that elevated our storytelling to a higher level. And I mean, if I could brag about it, I think that we just set a bar for how journalism can look like and what can be done with it.
Working with the Pulitzer Center, we began to make arrangements and make connections in Scotland. Once we finally got there, the thing that kind of surprised me the most was the amazing willingness, I think, of people to talk about poverty in Scotland, which is a contrast to what we see here. Here in southwestern Pennsylvania, poverty is almost a dirty word. But in Scotland, people were willing to talk about poverty at the drop of a dime.